Young Elias believed that the river that flowed behind his house was alive, a notion his family chalked up to a boy's overactive imagination. One afternoon, while skipping rocks along its banks, he discovered that the riverbed had receded, revealing a moss-covered rock carved with ancient, swirling symbols. When he touched the stone, the air shimmered, and a hidden current of energy pulsed through his fingertips. The river, which moments before had been a placid ribbon of water, began to whisper to him, its voice a murmuring of stones and rushing water. The words were not spoken, but felt, as if the river itself were sharing a forgotten secret, a plea for help against a creeping greyness that threatened to silence its song forever. Guided by the river's silent, insistent pull, Elias followed the path downstream. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, the ordinary trees of the forest twisted into strange, gnarled shapes, their branches reaching for the sky like skeletal fingers. The air grew heavy with the scent of damp earth and something older, a scent of petrichor and ancient magic. Soon he found the source of the creeping greyness, a twisted vortex of ash and shadow, where the river should have pooled into a clear, vibrant spring. Standing guard over the vortex was a creature of shimmering darkness, its form shifting and swirling like smoke caught in a breeze. Elias knew then that the river's whispers had not been a child's fancy, but a true and urgent calling to protect a forgotten magic. With the carved rock still glowing in his hand, Elias faced the shadow creature. He held the stone out, and a wave of pure, sparkling water magic erupted from it, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. The fight was fierce, a silent battle of light against void, but Elias, driven by the river's life force, held his ground. He poured all his energy into the ancient rock, until the grey vortex shrieked and unraveled, dissipating into nothingness. The moment the shadow vanished, the forest's colours returned, brighter and more vivid than before, and the river's song filled the air once more. The mystical adventure was over, but Elias knew his ordinary life was changed forever, for he had discovered that magic was not just in stories, but in the heart of the world around him. Blood River. Chapter 2. The Keeper's Mark. Three nights had passed since Elias banished the shadow from the spring, but sleep no longer came easily. Each time he closed his eyes, he felt the river's current flowing through his dreams, calling him back, pulling him deeper into its ancient mysteries. The carved stone now rested on his windowsill, its symbols glowing faintly in the moonlight. Elias couldn't stop thinking about the stone. During breakfast, during class, during every quiet moment, his mind returned to those ancient, swirling symbols. What were they? Who carved them? And why did they respond to his touch? The river behind his house was called Blue River. It had been called that for as long as anyone could remember. But the stone felt older than any name, older than the town itself. That Saturday morning, Elias wrapped the carved stone in an old cloth and slipped it into his backpack. He had a destination in mind: the Millbrook Public Library, a tall brick building at the center of town that smelled of old paper and secrets. If there were answers to be found, they would be there. Mrs. Carmichael, the head librarian, looked up from her desk as Elias entered. Her silver hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her reading glasses hung from a beaded chain around her neck. "Local history section?" she asked without preamble, as if she'd been expecting him. Elias nodded, surprised. "Third floor, far corner, but you won't find what you're really looking for in the public stacks." She returned to her work, leaving Elias to puzzle over her cryptic words. The local history section was dusty and cramped, filled with thin volumes about town founders, agricultural records, and old photographs of Main Street through the decades, but nothing about the river, nothing about ancient stones or symbols, nothing that explained the magic he'd witnessed. It was as if someone had carefully erased every trace of what came before. Elias spent hours searching, pulling book after book from the shelves, town newsletters from the 1920s, census records from the 1880s, even a self-published memoir by the mayor from 1903. All of them mentioned Blue River, but only in passing, a pleasant place for summer picnics, good fishing in the spring. Nothing more. It wasn't until he found a water-damaged atlas from 1847 that something caught his eye. The map showed the town's river clearly marked, but the name had been scratched out and rewritten. Beneath Blue River, barely visible under the heavy ink, was another name, Bluid River. Elias's heart raced. Bluid. It sounded Scottish, and he remembered from history class that many of the earliest settlers in this region had come from Scotland in the late 1700s. But why change the name? And why try so hard to hide it? As the library's closing bell chimed, Elias gathered his notes. He had more questions than answers, but now he had a thread to pull. Bluid River, the Scottish word for blood. What had happened here? What had turned a river named for blood into one named for peaceful blue waters? And what did any of it have to do with the stone that now seemed to pulse with warmth against his back? Mrs. Carmichael watched him leave from her desk, her expression unreadable. As the library doors closed behind Elias, she picked up her phone and made a quiet call. "He started looking," she said softly, "just like his grandmother did."